Israel's security cabinet is voting to intensify its military operations in Gaza. Israel's military says it has already started calling up tens of thousands of army reservists to join and expand its war effort, a move aimed at ramping up pressure on Hamas to release all remaining hostages. As Candace Cole reports, the vote follows outrage over Israel's long-lasting blockade on humanitarian aid and growing calls to reach a lasting ceasefire.
It's been over 60 days since Israel halted food aid and other relief like medicine and clean water from reaching the 2 million people trapped in Gaza, creating a humanitarian catastrophe as the risk of famine looms over the 25-mile strip. As supplies run out, doctors and aid groups continue to raise the alarm that more and more people are dying from hunger and preventable disease due to a lack of critical aid. Just last week, a ship run by the NGO Freedom Flotilla Coalition carrying aid en route to Gaza was hit by drone strikes, which the group believes Israel is responsible for.
This ship was carrying 18 people, 12 of whom are crew members and 6 human rights observers. The ship was also carrying much-needed humanitarian aid to Gaza.
Israel halted the delivery of aid to Gaza back in March as ceasefire negotiations broke down, demanding the release of the remaining hostages being held by Hamas. Now, Israel is reportedly planning to activate thousands of reservists as part of a plan to increase pressure on Hamas, a plan that has consumed the families of the remaining hostages with, quote, overwhelming anxiety, according to this post on X by the Hostages and Missing Families Forum, as those rallying to see their loved ones returned home fear what may result from further escalation.
The main issue is that the military operation is going stronger and stronger, and they're talking about bringing more troops and reserves, and we're really afraid that it's going to kill most of the hostages that are still alive and bury the other one forever.
But the Israeli army believes increasing pressure on Hamas will lead to the hostages' return. Hamas has executed a number of alleged looters after several incidents in which heavily armed gangs attacked food stores and community kitchens. More than 52,000 Palestinians have been killed in Israel's retaliation against Hamas for the devastating attack on October 7th, 2023 that killed 1,200 people and took 251 hostages. Candace Cole, Global.
And Benjamin Netanyahu is vowing to retaliate after a missile launched by Iran-backed Houthi rebels in Yemen struck the grounds of Israel's international airport today. The attack briefly halted flights and caused panic inside the airport. The missile left a large crater near the airport's access road and was fired just hours before Israel's cabinet held the vote to expand the offensive in Gaza. According to Israeli media, 4 people were injured in the blast, but none of them seriously. In the United Kingdom, 8 men, including 7 Iranian nationals, have been arrested in 2 separate anti-terrorism raids. London's Metropolitan Police says 5 of the men were arrested at various locations across England on Saturday, part of a probe into an alleged terror plot to attack an unspecified target in London. 3 other Iranian men were arrested in London on allegations relating to a national security offense in an unrelated investigation.
To receive what is known here in Israel as Decree 8. What does Decree 8 means? It's basically a call-up for reserve, many times for an indefinite amount of time. This shows that perhaps there's preparation to expand, to massively expand the military campaign in the coming days. When you send this, what is known as a Decree 8, that means that this is an unplanned call for reserves. People have begun to receive that, still not in very large numbers, but it is usually it begins with smaller numbers, and then if the campaign expands, more and more people will be getting this decree. And it means that basically the IDF is now planning to call up reserves, send them to Gaza, either to fight themselves or to relieve some of the active units from the security missions they're currently holding along the roads, along the buffer zone in Gaza. Gaza, to relieve those active units from those missions and allow them to go deeper into Gaza. The army said over the past week or two or so that all the plans to expand the military operation are ready, and all that is left is to get the order from the government. If really these decrees have begun to be published, begun to be given to people, that means that the next stage is probably here, and more reservists will be called, meaning that the expansion of the military campaign is practically here.
Well, you're listening to sirens blasting in Jerusalem yesterday after Israel's military intercepted a missile. Israel claims it was fired by the Iranian-backed Houthi rebels in Yemen. It is the fourth such attack in just one day. And this came on the same day that thousands rallied in Yemen's capital city to protest Israel's war in Gaza and recent U.S. airstrikes in Yemen. Our next guest is the author of Hunting the Caliphate. You about this sort of campaign the Trump administration is trying with the Houthis. We're about 50 days in now, and yet they continue to resist. They keep launching missiles into Israel. This is the Vice President, J.D. Vance, with our Brett Baer, defending their tactic right now. Listen here.
I think that the president has made it very clear that one of his core national security priorities is that if you load stuff onto a ship and you send it to the United States, we want to make sure that it shows up without the sailors getting killed, without the ship being destroyed. That is an objective that we're going to pursue forcefully if we have to.
So, General, the question is, does something need to change with this strategy because the Houthis just keep resisting?
Well, good afternoon, Aisha. I think what was just said by Vice President Vance was a good objective, certainly, that we want to ensure safe shipping to the United States. However, what we're doing as far as the airstrikes over the last 50 days has been relatively ineffective in stopping the Houthi rebels. It makes us feel good, but it's been ineffective. What will be effective against the Houthis is a combination of airstrikes, ground operations, and use of our sea power to an extent. Now, it doesn't have to be U.S. forces on the ground. It could be a coalition from Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, our Gulf state allies. They fought against Yemen from 2015 to 2020. But something must be done seriously. All we're doing right now are pinpricks. A strategic campaign with a coalition is what's needed to stop the Houthis.
Okay, I want to sort of lay out the scene here of what's going on in the Middle East. If we can pop up the map here of our U.S. military assets, and we'll see that Secretary Pete Hegseth is keeping 2 aircraft carrier battle groups around the Red Sea. General, how important is that, and does that feel like the right thing to do right now?
Well, it's a big deal to keep 2 carrier strike groups in the area. It's the USS Carl Vinson and USS Truman, which I've been on before. USS Truman is going to be kept there a week longer. It's certainly sending a message. The CENTCOM Commander General Eric Kurilla asked for the 2 carrier strike groups to remain. That will help with the air campaign. But again, air campaign alone will not stop the Houthis. We saw that with ISIS. We were very successful with airstrikes against the ISIS, but it's because there were ground elements from Iraqi security forces and others that helped on the ground against ISIS. So air power has its limits. So much more must be done.
So this is kind of this is the opening act. This is the first military campaign by this administration. And you have to imagine that our adversaries all over the world are watching to see how this goes. How important is it, and how quickly we can defeat the Houthis?
Well, I think it's important that we defeat the Houthi rebels. How fast? It will take time. And if we are serious about it, then we need to do the campaign that I mentioned earlier. If we're not, then withdraw. But airstrikes are like pinpricks. Houthis been fighting in that area for 10 to 20 years. They're not going to be deferred or deterred by airstrikes alone.
Okay.
In the Gaza Strip, Over the weekend, the IDF sent out notices of mobilizations of tens of thousands of IDF reservists to report to their units. This was done under Emergency Order Number 8 in anticipation of an expansion of the campaign with the hope of finally defeating Hamas once and for all and bringing this war to a successful conclusion. At present, the IDF's Golani and Givati brigades, armored brigades 188 and 401, and for the first time, all three regular combat engineering battalions are operating simultaneously in the Gaza Strip. The mobilization of reserve units, which have acquired a tremendous amount of experience and expertise over the past 18 months, will greatly enhance the offensive power of these regular units. And additionally, the reserve forces can operate independently with both Gaza and along the northern border, without the presence of regular units, increasing the operational flexibility of the IDF and giving the political echelon more options. This includes rising the intensity of fighting in the Gaza Strip, along with seeking new ways to provide humanitarian aid while denying Hamas the ability to steal this aid and use it for their own purposes. So Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, Defense Minister Israel Katz, and the Chief of Staff Eyal Zamir have approved the IDF's new operational plans in the Gaza Strip in light of Hamas's refusal to move forward another phase of hostage releases. Security officials note that Hamas has recently hardened its positions based on the working assumption that President Trump will pressure Israel to fold in the negotiations ahead of his visit to Saudi Arabia on the 12th of May. Meanwhile, Israel is preparing to escalate the military activity in the Gaza Strip after the president's Middle East tour in mid-month in no progress is made in the hostage talks. And speaking of hostages, on Saturday evening, Hamas released another video and proof of life of hostage Maxim Harquin at the request of the hostages' family's headquarters. The video, or parts of it, will be published only with the family's permission. Arabian Israel senior Middle East analyst Mati Shoshani, who will tell us what's going on in Iran, where the chaos keeps building amidst the fourth mysterious explosion and widespread blackouts across the country while negotiations with the Trump administration continue. So, Mati Shoshani, what's happening in Iran?
So this week we have news that is slightly different. We're reporting on Iranian news because Iran has been experiencing an unprecedented series of explosions that they and no one else perhaps knows how to explain. So let me break down what's been happening. If you've been following the Middle Eastern news in the last week or week and a half, you've seen that a trending topic has been time and time again explosions, blow-ups, and let's call it infrastructure problems within Iran proper. Now, the Iranian government, it seems, have put a complete media cloak on this entire topic to prevent people from talking about and understanding what's been happening. But here's what we know so far. So the first event that we know about is a massive explosion that took place in a warehouse within a port where chemical components of rocket fuel blow up suspiciously. Now, what's suspicious about this whole thing is that the people reporting from the ground in Iran, as in eyewitnesses, people reporting on social media, what they report is that they heard initial explosions before the big, massive explosion, which indicates that there was or sabotage or someone was able to trigger this very attack. Wait, but it gets better. Then there's reports on seismic events that take place deep inside the ground, and the Iranian government, once again, has nothing to say. And it gets even better. Then there's reports on grid failure in extensive areas within Iran. And all of this, I mean, it's a long series of explosions, a long series of, let's call it infrastructure and grid problems, all taking place at the same time, and the Iranian government has nothing to say aside from this is from natural causes. Last week, one of the official Iranian Twitter accounts initially blames Israel and the Mossad for the explosions that took place, but after that, it seems like business is as usual. But is it really? Because what also happened at the same time as these series of explosions are taking place in Iran is the locals in Iran are pressuring their government, saying clearly this isn't an act of God, clearly this is an act of man, and someone is sabotaging our facilities, someone is bombing some key crucial locations within the country, and you know about this and you're not telling us what's truly happening. So they are losing face against, or with their people time and time again, even with the fact that they're not answering, because the fact that they say nothing about this indicates that it is an act of sabotage. Now, it doesn't have to be a bomb. Some of the theories that are circulating are stating that it could be a combination of or explosive charges or cyber attacks that cause explosions or something entirely different that we're not fully aware of yet. Israel has had nothing to say about this, and neither have the Americans, but it seems that a lot is going on the ground within Iran. And where we see this really taking place, where we see the effect of these explosions and these attacks within Iran, is in the negotiations. The Iranians have stated that they're not coming to the next round of negotiations that's supposed to take place with the Americans. This would be round number 4, where they're supposed to be talking about the technical issues or technical components of them removing their nuclear military program components, specifically enriched uranium, and sanctions being removed to a certain degree. But they're saying they're not coming. And the reason is, according to an official statement by the Iranians, we don't see a point in coming when it's not doing any good for Iran, possibly referencing the fact that the explosions are taking place inside Iran as this is happening. And I'll remind you again that they initially accused Israel of being the one to sabotage and attack these facilities within Iran, possibly because it was convenient for them, and possibly because Israel maybe was behind it. And again, Israel hasn't officially claimed any responsibility whatsoever. Here's what gets more interesting. Trump has removed Mike Waltz, who was responsible to a certain degree on the nuclear program. On a component of the nuclear agreement with the Iranians. He's been moved to a different role. And right now, Israel doesn't have an ally within the White House pushing for a more military solution to the Iranian nuclear program. And that is a problem for us. That's a problem on many levels, but specifically because Israel is the one calling for an attack on the Iranians. As far as we're considered, and by the way, several European countries are thinking the same thing and communicating the same ideas, an agreement with the Iranians that doesn't have an immediate snapback mechanism where military action is taken, sanctions are reimposed on any infraction of the agreement, would ultimately result in them once again pushing for bomb capabilities. They already have the ability to deliver the bombs. They have the ballistic and intercontinental ballistic missiles.
The average ultimate
almost to military level. And unless we fully remove their ability to do that, Israel is at a problem. And once more, we find ourselves at a bind. The Israeli government is opposing the American agenda. The American agenda, just to recap on a very long conversation, is leaning more and more towards what would be an agreement as a solution for this problem versus a military option. And at the time, as we're recording this, there still is a military option on the table. Israel has been practicing and training its Air Force, and the Americans have an incredible amount of assets on the ground, all poised to attack within Iran.